When my daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Auntie, it's time you found somewhere else to stay," I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just smiled the way I always do when my heart is breaking, and I said, "Okay, dear, let me pack my things." That was the moment everything I had built for the last 12 years quietly slipped away, like water through my fingers. My name is Mei Ling, but everyone calls me Auntie May. I am 68 years old now, and for most of my life, I believed family was the one thing nobody could take from you. I was wrong. Let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand how I ended up standing in my own son's hallway with a small suitcase and nowhere to go. I married young. At 19, my husband, Wei, was a quiet man who worked in the rubber plantation. We had one son, Jun Hao. When Wei passed away from a sudden heart attack 25 years ago, it was just the two of us. I sold noodles from a little stall to keep the lights on and to pay for Jun Hao's school. Every night I came home with aching feet and the smell of garlic on my hands. But when my boy ran to the door calling Mama, everything felt right. Jun Hao grew up kind. He studied hard, got a good job in the city, and at 30, he brought home a girl named Michelle. She was pretty, educated, and spoke English fluently. I liked her the first time I saw her smile. I thought my son chose well. On the day they got married, I gave them the only thing of value I still owned: the thin gold bracelet my own mother had given me on my wedding day. Michelle slipped it on and hugged me so tight, I thought my old ribs. "I'll take care of him, I promise." For the first few years, everything was beautiful. They lived in a small apartment, then bought a little terrace house when their daughter, Xiao Yu, was born. I moved in to help. I woke at 5 every morning to cook porridge for the baby, washed tiny clothes by hand, rocked Xiao Yu to sleep so Michelle could rest after long days at the office. Jun Hao would come home tired, kiss my cheek, and say, "Ma, what would we do without you?" I felt needed. I felt loved. I never asked for anything. I slept in the small room at the back that used to be a store. My clothes fitted into one cupboard. I gave them almost all the money I made from my noodle stall because the baby needs milk powder and good diapers. Michelle would protest at first, then take the envelope with a grateful smile. I told myself, this is what mothers do. We give until there is nothing left to give. But slowly, quietly, things started to change. It began with little things. Michelle started saying, "Ma, you don't have to wake up so early. We can manage." Then, "Ma, maybe use less oil when you cook. It's not healthy for the children." I smiled and nodded. I started cooking blander food, even though I missed the taste of home. Then one day, I heard her on the phone in the kitchen. She was speaking English, thinking I couldn't understand. "My mother-in-law is so old school. Everything has to be her way. I just want my own space." My heart felt heavy, but I told myself she was tired. Every young mother gets tired. Xiao Yu started school, and a little brother, Xiao En, arrived. The house felt fuller, louder, happier. I still did everything. Packed lunchboxes, fetched them from school when the driver was late, stayed up sewing name tags on uniforms. Junhao, Michelle said, "Ma, now you'll have your own proper room with a window." I cried when I saw it. A real bed, a little table, sunlight coming through white curtains. I thought, this is my home forever. I was wrong again. The first real crack came the year Xiao Yu turned 10. It was Chinese New Year. I had spent weeks preparing. Red packets, pineapple tarts, special kueh my own mother taught me. On the morning of the reunion dinner, Michelle walked into the kitchen and said, "Ma, actually we're going to my parents' place this year. They booked a hotel banquet. It's easier with the kids." Just like that, no discussion. I stood there holding the tray of cookies I had baked at 3 a.m., and I felt something inside me shrink. I smiled, of course. "No problem, dear. You young people enjoy." That night, I sat alone in the big house, eating instant noodles, listening to the fireworks outside. I told myself it was only 1 year. Then the comments got sharper. "Ma, the children say your stories are boring. They want Disney, not old kampong tales. Ma, please don't kiss them so much. Germs. Ma, your clothes smell like the market." Each time I swallowed the hurt and said, "Okay, I'll change." I started staying in my room more. I stopped cooking big meals. I gave them even more space. I thought if I became smaller, quieter, they would feel comfortable again. But the smaller I became, the more invisible I felt. Last year, Michelle's mother moved in with them for 3 months after her knee surgery. Suddenly, the house had space for her mother, but not for me. I watched her mother sleep in the guest room, eat at the main table, play with the grandchildren. I smiled and served them tea. Inside, I was asking, what did I do wrong? The truth came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had just come back from the market. My slippers were wet, and I was carrying 2 bags of vegetables for dinner. Michelle was in the living room with her best friend, Lisa. They didn't hear me come in. Lisa asked, "How long is your mother-in-law staying? Isn't it crowded?" Michelle laughed. A laugh I had never heard from her before. Cold, tired. She said, "Honestly, I can't wait for her to leave. She's from a different era." The kids are embarrassed when their friends see her old clothes. Junhao feels guilty, but even he agrees it's time she moved out. I stood in the hallway with rain dripping from my hair, and something inside me finally broke, not with noise, but with perfect silence. I put the vegetables down, went to my little room, and started packing. That evening, Junhao came home early. He found me folding my clothes into one old suitcase. He looked panicked. "Ma, what are you doing?" I kept folding. I told him calmly what I had heard. He went pale. He ran to find Michelle. I heard shouting, real shouting, for the first time in that house. Michelle came to my room 20 minutes later. Her eyes were red, but her voice was firm. "Auntie, I'm sorry you heard that, but it's true. The children are growing up in a different world. We need privacy. We need our own family rhythm. I think it's better if you find a small place nearby. We'll still visit. We'll pay for everything." She said it kindly. That was the worst part. She really believed she was being fair. I looked at my son. He couldn't meet my eyes. He just kept saying, "Ma, please understand. The kids, the future." I understood everything in that moment. I was no longer their present. I was a photograph from the past they kept out of guilt. I finished packing in silence. 2 suitcases. 12 years of my life fitted into 2 suitcases. Junhao carried them to the car. Michelle stood at the door, holding the children. Xiao Yu waved and said, "Bye, Popo. Visit soon, okay?" As if I was going on holiday. Xiao En was playing with his toy car and didn't even look up. The rain had stopped. The road was wet and shining. Junhao drove me to a small rented room above a coffee shop that a friend had helped me find months earlier, just in case. He kept saying, "Ma, this is temporary. We'll fix this." I looked out the window and said nothing. When he parked, he finally cried. He held my hands and begged me to forgive him. I touched his cheek the way I did when he was 5 years old and had fever. I said, "My son, you have your family now. Let me go so you can be happy." Then I got out of the car and closed the door softly. The first night in my new room, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, looking at the street light, and felt lighter than I had in years. Strange, isn't it? When you lose everything, sometimes you find you still have yourself. The weeks that followed were quiet. Junhao called every day at first, then every few days, then once a week. The children forgot to ask about Popo. Life moved on, the way rivers always move on. I started waking up when I wanted. I cooked only the food I liked. Spicy sambal, fried ikan bilis, strong black coffee. I wore my old batik dresses again and didn't care who saw. I made new friends at the morning market. Auntie Susan, who sells flowers, Uncle Raman, who fixes watches. We sit under the tree and talk about everything and nothing. For the first time in decades, nobody needed me to be anyone except myself. One Sunday, 3 months later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it and saw Xiao Yu standing there alone. She had taken the bus by herself. She was crying. She ran into my arms and said, "Popo, I miss you so much. The house is too quiet without your singing." I held her and felt my heart open again, like a flower that had forgotten the sun. That evening, Junhao and Michelle came to fetch her. They stood at my doorstep, looking ashamed. Michelle spoke first. Ma, we were wrong. The house feels empty without you. Please come home. Junhao couldn't even speak. He just kept nodding. I looked at them for a long time. Then I said, "This is my home now. But your home is always open to me as a guest, the way my home will always be open to you." Michelle started crying. She understood. These days, I visit them every weekend. I bring homemade kueh, tell the old kampong stories the children suddenly love again. They beg me to stay longer, and I smile and say, "Next week, I have learned something precious. Love should never make you small. Real love gives you room to grow wings." Sometimes at night, I sit by my little window and look at the same streetlight. I think about the years I gave away and the years I finally took back. I wish I had understood sooner that being needed is not the same as being loved. But I am not angry. I am grateful. Because now, for the first time in my whole life, I belong to myself. And that, my dears, is the greatest homecoming of all. If you are listening to this and you feel invisible in your own family, please remember, your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice. Sometimes walking away quietly is the strongest thing you can do. And sometimes the people who hurt you the most will teach you how to love yourself the best. Thank you for sitting with me tonight. May your heart always